Welcome back. At least 26% of the country's police vehicles are broken and not operating, which leaves communities vulnerable. It also affects response times to crime scenes and leaves victims stranded. The affected vehicles belong to the visible policing and the detective arms of stations. KwaZulu-Natal and the Northern Cape seem to be the provinces with the most cars out of operation. We chat to DA Member of Parliament Andrew Whitfield. Mr. Whitfield, thank you so much for your time this evening. Let's start with the figures. What would be acceptable levels of unavailable vehicles?
Well, I think that it would be acceptable to have the lowest possible number of vehicles that require maintenance or repairs. Obviously, vehicles do need to go into repair, but we know that it can take hundreds of days for vehicles to make it out of the workshop and back into the police station, and therein lies the problem. It is poor management from a station level where police officers often treat vehicles recklessly, but then also a centralized procurement supply chain system which requires station commanders to get various levels of authority in order to have the vehicles repaired or even to change a tire. And so in KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape and the Eastern Cape, as an example, more than a quarter of police vehicles for visible policing and the detective services unit are inoperable in the workshop, broken down or require urgent repairs. And this is completely unacceptable. I would imagine that something less than 10% would possibly be acceptable. But it really all depends on the turnaround time to repair the vehicles and get them back on the street.
So we're talking about a management problem, we're talking about a procurement or a service provider problem. Are we also looking at a resource problem? Because often that is the reason we're given when we talk to SAPS themselves, saying, well, we are allocated limited resources, we are not able to manage them efficiently.
Well, this proves that it's not just a resource problem. It's primarily, in my view, a management problem. We get told that there aren't enough police vehicles, but then we discover, hundreds, if not thousands of police vehicles sitting in workshops across the country that are in need of repair. And if vehicles are properly maintained under the proper leadership of a station manager and a fleet manager that take good care of vehicles and the equipment, and make sure that they are returned to service as quickly as possible, then we won't have a problem. The reality is that earlier this year, the DA also exposed that the 10111 center call lines are not working as efficiently as they should, with millions of calls being dropped. So, at the moment, you can phone you can phone 10111, not get your call answered. And even if it does get answered, there aren't enough police vehicles at the stations in order to come out to attend to a crime. And that makes South Africans feel incredibly vulnerable. It is, we live in fear every single day, and to know that over a quarter of police vehicles are not available to be patrolling our streets to make us feel safer and to ensure that we can prevent crime, because that's what we want in South Africa, is to be able to prevent crime. And visible policing does just that. On the detective side, these are the most highly trained, qualified police officers that are responsible for solving violent crimes. And if they cannot get to the scene of a crime timeously, evidence could be contaminated, stolen or destroyed, and that would have devastating consequences.
And we've seen recently protests in Diepsloot are evident that communities all across our country are desperate for the police to address those soaring crime levels. As you said, visible policing plays a crucial role in that. Looking at what you want to do with this information, is there evidence of specific cases where a lack of vehicle availability due to bad management, etc., has resulted in perhaps more crime or a specific victim not being assisted in time, that you could take those cases and do something with these figures? Because highlighting them in the media, it doesn't seem that we're achieving very much.
Well, it's certainly a step in the right direction, and, making sure that the nation is aware of the facts and the figures helps us to pinpoint where there are examples where victims of crime have been further victimized by a delay in response from the police due to vehicle shortages. Most of the evidence is anecdotal. We hear people tell us that they don't see police vehicles. We hear people tell us about slow response times. I'm certain that we would be able to get people to come forward to tell us that they weren't able to call their police station because the phone lines were down, or that they did manage to get through and a vehicle wasn't available to come and assist them. These
to the provincial government, what steps are being taken to effect that change, and what's the hope of success?
Well, we've regularly petitioned the Minister in Parliament. We've asked questions. We've raised this. We've got him on the record, taking a very different position to ours. We will be proposing legislation in Parliament, which we hope will make this easier. And we believe that it's an inevitability. In Gauteng, we saw a very hastily put together provincial police. I'm not sure what to call it, but we had Premier Lesufi announcing the devolution of police functions in Gauteng. So it's not just a DA issue, it's an ANC issue as well. And I know that inside the ANC, this is a serious topic of conversation. It is clear that the centralization of SAPS is not working the way that it was intended to work, and that devolution is an opportunity where you have a capable government. And so we'll be bringing legislation to Parliament to try and facilitate this process. But, at the end of the day, if you are able to devolve such things as policing, you will start to see increased accountability from communities that are closer to their station commanders, closer to the provincial politicians responsible for policing, that can actually make decisions. And I think accountability, when the minister is hiding away in Pretoria, is really difficult if you're sitting on the Cape Flats to hold the minister accountable. But if you've got a provincial politician that you can elect and put into office, you can hold that person accountable. They need to come and do the job and make sure that police vehicles in this example that we are currently dealing with are back on the streets as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much. That is unfortunately where we're going to have to leave it. That was DA MP Andrew Whitfield.